But speaking of being excited and the new teaser, if you had to pick one thing that you're mostly excited about with the new content that's being introduced with the second season, what would that be?
So far, from what we've seen, I like the idea of having a bunch of unique woven echoes to use, kind of like unique maps, but actually worth your time. I actually like that because the monolith system has always been a good base of stuff, but of course, because of like all the delays and all that, they've been just very busy in general, and they haven't had time to update it. Like, remember, the monolith system we're playing right now is a system that was devised, I think, like 3 years ago at this point. So this is like the first major update to it, other than Aberoth and all that. But I don't really count that because of the way that like the favor stuff works. Like Aberoth is kind of like, I would call it side content, to be honest. Like legitimately, just because of the fact of how unimportant it is for the main game loop, that like I would be willing to just call it side content. But having more main game content, because I've been playing the same main game content for like so long now, just having just a breath of fresh air is like exciting to me.
Yeah, no, that seems about right. Again, I want to point out that I want to have these conversations with the content creators that are mainly playing Last Epoch. Is that right now from the interviews, I only saw Action RPG Aaron having one of the interviews. So I want to have these conversations with the actual main Last Epoch creators, has been here for a long time and actively come to streaming it on their platforms. And let's see what they have to say. And if they have any questions they want me to bring up, I'll try to make sure that I squeeze that in one way or another in the interview that's coming up this Friday. So let me give Dreadful a call. Hi, Dreadful. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. About to delete this Orbis real quick. 1 second.
You do that.
Okay, he's dead now. All right. Now what?
Yeah, that went fast. What are you playing?
I'm playing Tornado Werebear.
Tornado Werebear. I haven't touched that, actually.
So the concept is you dump your entire mana bar on tornadoes, and then you swap into Werebear form, and there's like a bunch of cool benefits you get for weaving your transforms.
Yeah? That sounds fun, actually.
All right.
You filling the stream with tornadoes then, I guess?
Oh, yes, I am. They're shooting lightning at enemies. It's very satisfying.
Well, yeah, those are the best builds. Fun builds are always the best.
Oh, yeah. So for questions that I would like to ask, the first one I would like to ask, this is relevant to you, by the way. So this is perfect for you. There currently is a huge disparity between the clear of certain minion builds, like most minion builds, by the way, when I say this, versus like just normal end game builds in the end game, which it causes like a huge like disparity gap between normal builds and minion builds in terms of favor farming. Is there going to be any changes to make it so that normal minions do not suck at clearing? You can reword it, whatever. But like right now, as it currently stands, there's like very specific they're like pretty much I could like count like maybe 30 or 40 minion builds right now that I can't even recommend, not even because they don't work, but because like the disparity between like farming favor is so large that like it would be like almost troll to recommend, if that makes sense.
Oh, no, I see your point. I definitely agree with this take as well. One of the last minion builds I played was a minion auto bomber. Amazing to play. It was so fun, but I mean, it cannot compete with the end game meta builds, not even close. But it was fun.
Yeah, like a good example here. I think the example I would use would be skeletons, like skeleton warriors, right? Their melee AoE is so goddamn small. It's so small. It is insane how small it is. But then like I can play like, I don't know, Elemental Nova and like reach 3 screens. It's just insane how different it is in that regard.
I mean, that's mostly why like the performing minion builds often goes into mass AoE or mass area coverage through projectiles or mage skeletons, or you have a 5 million minion army. I mean, you've been playing the game for long enough to remember the Wraith army builds where we just filled the entire screen and client crashes.
That's one of the builds that doesn't suffer from this because you just have that many wraiths.
Yeah.
But like for instance, a good example here is like I think So range minions aren't as bad in this regard. It's melee minions that are the ones that suffer the most from this problem. The range ones aren't as bad, but
Mm-mm.
melee minions, whether like I'll be honest, they just need an AOE buff. Like for instance, they actually buffed forge weapons recently, and they gave them like a little spinny attack. Like they
Mhm.
like use Rive or whatever, and they do like a spinny attack, which is like does damage in the area. And now they're really good for clear and stuff like that, in comparison to like other melee minions. And that's like the kind of route I would like them to see go with it. Is like just give them abilities that you can, because like there's all this minion cooldown recovery speed in the game, but not many ways of abusing it. So like imagine like there was uh like the little like warriors, they can like do like a slam or something, like like the zombie slams and PoE stuff like that.
Mm-mm. No, I definitely agree with you. I think this is good because now I can say this is your question and not mine, so I can squeeze in another minion question later. I love this.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like this has just been a problem. Like I legitimately have not played a minion build since 1.0 because of the favor stuff, because it's just been that bad. Like even the good minion builds, like let's say like you're playing Wraith Lord or something,
Mm.
even like Summon Scorpion, it's doing like 1700 corruption in a week or whatever shit like that. It still doesn't matter because the speed at which you farm is so slow that it doesn't matter. So it's not like Path of Exile where I kill bosses, I get loot and stuff like that. The main way of getting loot in Last Epoch right now is favor. Like that
Mm.
is like the gold standard. It's not like PoE where I can just play a bosser. Because if that was the case, then I think minions would be fine. But that is not the case currently.
Yeah. Now, I mean, they do well with bosses, but it's again the biggest problem is the main replay or the longevity of the game and the replayability is the word I'm looking for. It involves so much around monolith grinding and pumping that going with a slower build is often detrimental compared to the other meta builds in comparison. And minion builds are on the lower end of that spectrum. Is essentially what you're saying.
Yeah, the biggest like the issue there is the fact that like bosses, they're not like they're not like Path of Exile bosses, because like sure you can farm good items from them, you can get all your the not like you can get all of the +2 nihilists you want, but
Mm.
now you need to go get favor to go like put those nihilists on the market, or you need to go farm favor to get the amulets to slam into the LP versions of those nihilists. Like pretty much like the way it works in Last Epoch, you are forced to interact with the monolith no matter how you like slice it.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, it's the same thing for COF. Like, you want to target
Yeah,
farm something, you're essentially again forced into getting those favors so that you can get the what do they call it? The constellations, like the prophecies, so that you can even
exactly.
achieve that. So
Yes.
like this goes beyond MG as well. Now, I definitely agree with you. I think that's a fair take on it as well. So before I called you, I was talking to Lizard IRL, and we were talking about like the little bit about the CT. We can't obviously share anything from the test servers, and we
Hmm.
talked about the teasers, then the stuff that we can talk about that's been revealed. So I'm not sure how long you got. Can I steal you for like 15 minutes or so, or are you busy?
Yeah, I got plenty of time.
All
I'm
right,
just farming, so
you're just farming. All right. I mean, how long have you been playing Last Deep before? You were one of the first ones since way back. Like, I was there from
four
Kickstarter. How long was you?
years. 4 years,
4 years now.
about maybe 5 years at this point. Time is an illusion.
Time does fly. That's for damn sure. But you remember like the last big release where like Warlock and Falconeer was just shitting on everything, doing
Mhm.
thousands of corruptions and just
Oh,
pushing
by the
hard.
way, when you do ask that question, please tell them that like Falconer doesn't count for this discussion for minions. Like
No,
that does
I
not
agree.
count.
Yeah, no, that it does not count. It's not a real minion build. So I'm definitely with you on that one. Trust me, I will do what I can.
That one does not
um,
count.
So essentially, for those of you who missed it, I wrote to Dreadful as well. Same thing when I talked about with Lizard. I was a little surprised to see there wasn't that many main Last Epoch creators
Well, Warhound
that were
39 just
in these interviews. So I wanted to make sure that I'm in a position where I'm having an interview this Friday. I wanted to make sure that the content creators that do play Last Epoch mainly most of the time. Like, I've been here since Kickstarter. I play this so much off stream, but I'm not a main Last Epoch creator. So I want to make sure you guys
Yeah.
get something to add and get room or in the spotlight as well to be seen. I think that's quite important because this game, the foundation of Last Epoch is built on the people that are playing it consistently. You guys that are streaming this and making content on a daily basis, you are part of that foundation. I want to make sure that you guys get to add something that you guys want to have answered and whatnot. I think that's personally important, hence why I'm doing this.
Yeah, I agree. Well, the part of it too was like, even if they did ask me, I don't think I would have done it.
No?
Mainly because like time. I'm very busy right now because I have a lot of projects I'm working on currently, like projects I can't talk about. But like also as well, my co-host of the podcast I run, Perry, my friend, he's also going to be he's expecting another child like
Oh, shit.
literally the week of launch. So like that's partly why too. Is just we're just like kind of just busy, but like it is nice
Yeah.
to be able to get in a few questions. I appreciate this.
No, that's absolutely my pleasure. Do you have kids yourself?
No, not currently.
That's I have a daughter. She just started kindergarten. I've been sick constantly for the past 6 months, hence the cough I have right now. It's
Oh yeah,
full of germs,
that'll
I'll
do
tell you
it.
that much. Have you been very active in the test servers, or do you play that at all?
I am currently on them for a project that I can't talk about,
Okay, well, I'm
and
not
I
gonna
have
pry them.
leveled. I've played a few characters, and I've leveled a few
All
characters, but
right.
that is all I will say.
Yeah, no, that's good. So I'm struggling with this situation where we talk about something, right? And then we have seen some of it. Again, I want to re-emphasize for people who don't know, the test servers don't have everything. So we haven't seen everything. It's not like we have the entire game
Mm.
figured out. But it's really hard because some of the stuff we have seen, and we have to be very careful with what we actually say so we don't start breaking NDAs.
I personally refer to it as brain poison
Yeah, it's pretty good
because it's
actually.
like I want to talk about these things, but I can't talk about them yet.
Yeah, and then you sit there for the next 10 minutes thinking about what can you actually say.
Yeah.
Something that we can talk about. I was talking. This is something that's very close to my heart, specifically because I will be bringing this up when it comes to this interview. I'll be focusing a lot on deep diving a little bit more mechanically and class balances and balance in general in the game. And
Of
one of the things
course.
they did with the recent launch was corruption, where they added a quest chain to incentivize people, giving them a clear goal. Like, hey, you got to kill this boss at this corruption to progress. Hey, you can now beat Aberoth once you reach 300 corruption, and then after that, it's like, okay, there's no more corruption goals. Now it's just infinitely scaling. And they've been very adamant about saying, well, the best builds in the game, they will be farming at 300 plus corruption. That's like the frame of which the corruption scaling they want the meta builds to exist in. And then the launch happened. We have warlocks, we have the falconeers, and the static orb, and like people were just fucking going crazy. And we were yet again seeing a situation where content creators were doing 1,000 corruption plus again. And so Lister was talking about something that I'm personally pretty. I'm enjoying this approach to the game where I would rather see them capping corruption at a certain point than letting us juice the monoliths or maps in a way that is similar to Scarabs, Delirium Orbs that we have in Path of Exile, so you can still make things harder, but there being a clear goal that this is the pinnacle endgame content of farming, and then you can juice it up through other means. So I wanted to check what your opinion on the corruption system is, or if you're in the same boat that me and Lizard is.
So I'm very similar. Um, I think that like after a while, I think like if you are going to push corruption, you should be doing it because it's fun. Not be kind of like how people push infinite delve. Like people
Hmm.
don't push delve for money, right? They do it
No.
because it's funny, right?
Yeah.
Because they want to like see like shit pants reaches like 999 ladder or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I think that if they cap the corruption scaling, or not the scaling, but like the reward scaling and the favor scaling, while also introducing like a corruption ladder, I think that would be a good 1-2 punch into fixing this problem. Because so there's the reason why there's such a big disparity is there's like a bunch of people talking over themselves, like over each other. So you have the individuals who like play Merchants Guild for a week, get to like 700 corruption or something like that, and then like they move on. Then you have the people who are playing COF for 2 months, like hardcore, and then like getting to like 1.5 corruption or more. Then you have like the people who are doing that while also playing something like Falconer, and then like you have so many differing opinions on how the stuff works that like there's so many microcosms that has been caused because of the lack of balance changes over the past few years, on top of the corruption rework and all that, that now, in my opinion, I think like it would be fair if they just capped it. Like at this point, there's no point in like do you really think it would like matter if I went to 2000 corruption, I get like 20% extra favor? I don't think that adds anything to the game, right?
No, I mean you'll reach this point where clear speed versus corruption pushing. You want to balance
Yeah.
that to have the most favor per hour, if you will. If you're min maxing the gameplay, which a lot of the ARPG veterans are always going to be trying to achieve, right? At least that's the general
Yeah.
consensus of the entire genre itself, right? My biggest concern is that the Last Epoch is such a young game that a lot of people are coming in, especially with the launch. They had record sales and everything. So many new people coming in, and we were in a position where most people, well, I wouldn't say most people, since I don't know the statistics. A lot of people play their own thing, and they might end up with a half-ass build, and they couldn't even get to reasonable corruption to even get to the point where they could even try the Aberrath fight. And then obviously we have content creator make a fantastic build, guys like yourself and many others in the industry that we have here in Last Epoch, where we're in a position where if they follow a build guide, they can then achieve these things in a more digestible or manageable way, time wise at least. And there's just different ways of playing the game. But the biggest problems that I see with it is that obviously there's a lot of eyes on us content creators. And if they're playing a build, they're struggling to do 200, 300 corruption, and then they see a content creator doing like 1.5k corruption, it just feels so crazy. And then that kind of becomes the norm, which is kind of a content creator problem, I guess, which is, not just in Last Epoch, it's in every game more or less. But that becomes the norm, that's what you're supposed to do to play effectively, especially with what you were referring to with how important favor is. Like you can play a minion build, but it's not going to be that effective. So you'll have to play that a lot longer, and it's going to be a lot slower before you get to the same progression that someone that's playing a static war build, Falconeer, or Warlock, right? So it just creates this dynamic pressure on people, where people are voluntarily and involuntarily comparing themselves to what content creators are doing, and suddenly you create the meta, and then you have this flavor of the month. And I think that if the corruption was capped, I think that would create a visualized end game goal for players to say that, well, this is the pinnacle content you can engage with, and if they have different sources on the side that will allow them to juice the monoliths up, if you will, lack of better
Yeah.
words, that would allow people to do these crazy things, right? Which is very, very similar to what they do in PoE, right? You reach the red tier 16, maybe tier 17 being the pinnacle. Wow, you can clear that, but you can also, make that 50 times harder by, deli orbing it and putting all of these mechanics on it. So you have these extra steps you can do so, but everyone knows that you can clear the entire game's content and be done with this if you can clear tier 16. You don't even have to do a tier 17 to have the game cleared and have finished the game yourself, if you will. And I feel like that was something they took a really good step in when they introduced the visualization of the quest chain to do Aberrath of 300 corruption, because they told the players with the interface that, hey, you have to kill this boss at this corruption. You do that, you'll get the next step of your progression. And as soon as the 300 was done, there was nothing. I'm talking to Dreadful. Let me link his Twitch in the chat.
Hello, this is Dread. If you've watched Last Epoch content, you'll probably know that. Yeah, it's kind of funny you talk about the pressure that like people feel when it comes to like comparison and all that. Even I feel that pressure. Like
Mm.
I feel that pressure because like when I like release a video of a build that I do at like 700 corruption, because that's like where I stop personally, because like I like to play multiple builds. I like to play a lot of builds. So I'll
Mm.
play like the thing is like there will be one guy who like pushes corruption for like 2 months, right? And gets to like 3000 with like so and so build. But then I'll like push like 10 characters or maybe 20, 30, whatever, right? To like 700 corruption in the same time frame. And like the amount of time investment is about the same. It's just one person decided to play it on one character while the other person decided to play like a bunch of different characters. And I've had like problems where people would like look at my stuff and like rate it worse because of that, but like it doesn't really like it's always been a problem in the back of my mind of like where should I be in terms of farming and stuff like that. It's always been a problem, but capping corruption would fix that, because then there would be this goal: I would be a little bit more questionable about doing this before 1.2, but now that we have more endgame content, because I think before, if you capped corruption, I think it'd be kind of a meme because, like,
Mm.
like there's
If
not
there's
enough
no extra
content.
content. Yeah, exactly.
Like, give people what they want, right?
Yeah.
But now that we're finally getting to the point where we have actual content, actual things to finish, I think that now, like, this patch would be the time to cap it. It would be the perfect time, because then all the people coming in, they'd have the new expectations, and that's really all it is like people's expectations. Because there was a huge wave of people who played the 40k ward sentinel builds and the 40k ward warlock builds, and, like, no, we're not talking about a cap on corruption, Misha. We're talking about a cap on resources, like getting favor and all that. Like, if you want to push farther for your own benefit, that's fine. But we're talking about, like, yeah, we're talking about, like, in terms of favor and all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, the LP stuff. If you don't know, guys, by the way, the higher you go in corruption, the higher chances you have for LP and all that.
Yes, and they
But,
kept
like,
like they put that scaling to be a bit more manageable. So the higher corruption, it's not a massive difference.
yeah. And I think it's time now. And because of, like, all of that extra stuff that happened during 1.0, the expectations of what is a good build and what is a bad build is completely all out of whack currently. Like, it is
Mm.
like I don't know. It's like the mojo's off. Like, it's like I'll ask people. It's like, oh, I'll do 200 corruption. That's great. And I'll talk to the next guy. It was like, oh, I'll do 700 corruption. I think that's great. And the
Yeah.
next guy's like, I only play builds that get to 3,000. Everything is
Yeah, yeah,
terrible.
yeah. The
And I
meta
have
stuff.
this being told to me by people who don't even get to that point. You know, like the meme. You know, like when T17s came out, and or like the new, like the Uber bosses for Pee Wee came out, and, like, there's so many people asking, like, is this Uber viable for them just to go, like, do T15s with it? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about. Where, like, people want a good build, but they don't want to do the content that that build is meant for. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like expectations of what they're playing as well. I think that the whole corruption and pushing and corruption ladder, I don't mind it. I think it's mostly for me that I'm very much against the idea of the greater rift play from D3, right? I don't like it, and that's also why I don't like Delve. So if you, sorry, I think that the whole idea of like keeping the infinite scaling for people that want to push it for ladder reasons and stuff like that, I think that's a cool thing. Because I mean, the arena is, not the most exciting
Yeah,
content.
I agree.
So I think that corruption pushing stuff like that could be a fun thing to keep. But I mean, I would be very happy if they said, well, I mean, after this amount of corruption, you don't get more scaling on anything. You don't get more gold. You don't get more higher LP chance. You get nothing for higher corruption other than boasting rights and the ladder. I think that would be a
Yeah,
cool way to balance it personally. But it's like you said, that if they did it before this patch, it would be a meme because there's no
it would have
content.
sucked. It would have sucked. I think personally, I think the cap, in my humble opinion, should be placed at either 1,000 or 1,500, and of course keep the diminishing returns as you get up there higher. So, like, 1,000 and 1,500 isn't that bad. Like, you want to reward people for playing good builds, but you don't want to reward people, like, so the problem that's happening, in my opinion, is people aren't getting rewarded for playing good builds. They're getting rewarded for playing 3 months straight on the same character, which is like, I don't think that any game should be, like, you know, rewarding you for no lifing for 3 months straight, right? Like, you gotta, like, there's gotta be a time where you just set the game down and go do something else. Like, there has, and that kind of quit moment needs to be at a decent time, which I think, like, 1,000 to 1.5 corruption would be good enough for that.
I mean, I both disagree and agree with that take. Like, I think that the idea of someone who's playing significantly more than someone else should be more rewarded, obviously. But then again, if they're playing more hours a day, then they're gonna get more loot and they're gonna progress further just because of that naturally, right? But I do agree with the idea that um, it takes such a long time to get to thousands upon thousands of corruption. It's a very limited option of pools of builds that you can play that can achieve those things. And it's like you said, it kind of incentivizes people into doing that more so than having fun. And the time it takes to get there. I think we're both are in the same category there, or the same page of the book, where we say that at some point the scaling we get per corruption that we increase should be locked essentially, and that will only be for the sake of a leaderboard and boasting rights, and that's fun in itself for the people who want to do that. Because it would also remove the whole incentivizing feature that people feel forced to do those builds to play effectively, right?
Exactly.
So
And
I
I
like
think
that.
that there are upsides to having corruption uncapped technically in terms of like the actual number you can go to, because I think it's actually a good balancing mechanism because the game kind of like quote unquote self balances itself slightly when you have that kind of thing, because like the game has essentially done that. Like for instance, like we know what the outliers are currently because of this, because people will post their 420 game videos where they're like, yeah, look at me, I'm at like 3,000 corruption with ZHP Falconer. I'm not going to
Mm.
show you my monolith because half of them are all uncompleted monos because I died in all of them, but I still did it anyways. Ha ha ha. You know,
Sounds about right. That's a glass cannon. But yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of the way that system works, but like one of the main concerns was obviously lack of content. The new season is going to completely fix that issue, which I'm very, very excited for. Obviously, we can't go into detail without spilling NDAs here, but the teaser have shown some stuff, which I'm personally very excited about. But speaking of being excited and the new teaser, if you had to pick one thing that you're mostly excited about with the new content that's being introduced with the second season, what would that be?
so far from what we've seen, I like the idea of having a bunch of unique woven echoes to use, kind of like unique maps, but actually worth your time. I actually like that because the monolith system has always been a good base of stuff, but of course, because of like all the delays and all that, they've been just very busy in general, and they haven't had time to update it. Like, remember, the monolith system we're playing right now is a system that was devised, I think, like 3 years ago at this point. So this is like the first major update to it, other than Aberoth and all that. But I don't really count that because of the way that like the favor stuff works. Like Aberoth is kind of like, I would call it side content, to be honest. Like legitimately, just because of the fact of how unimportant it is for the main game loop, that like I would be willing to just call it side content. But having more main game content, because I've been playing the same main game content for like so long now, just having just a breath of fresh air is like exciting to me.
Yeah, no, that seems about right. I'm very excited about the whole woven system. The sets are gonna be crazy cool, but it's like in the end, the most exciting part is the, let's call it, the fixed end game replayability, because that's really where a lot of people that I've talked to, that it's like they get to the monolith and then they're bored because there's very little content to engage with, and that's
Oh yeah,
completely fixed, right? So I
to
like to
throw
hear
out a
that.
number, I think like only like, I think last time they said it, I think like maybe 1% of like people who buy the game get to 300 corruption, which is kind of a shame considering that's literally where the game starts in terms of min maxing your character, right?
Yeah. Now, I mean, that's kind of to expected. It's the same,
Yeah.
similar statistics on PoE, right? Not the majority of the players don't even get to maps, but the ones that do get to maps, they do continue and play quite a lot once they get to maps. Like Chris Wilson said that in PoE, that once they get a player to get to the map, they own their soul. And I think the last Epoch kind of missed, or have been missing rather, this feature where they get people to the end game, and now there's so much cool things to engage with that that's when they're really gonna rope the people in. And I think that this new season is going to allow them to hit that mark where once a guy comes into the monolith, they're like, yo, what is this? This is where the game starts kind of approach, right? So I hope that the numbers are going to change with the upcoming season for sure.
Yeah, so part of it too, I've been doing a lot of 10 out of 10 Harbinger run. If people are unfamiliar, that is effectively like a stone run in Path of Exile in terms of like how much effort and stuff it takes and all that to get there. And I've done 16 of them so far. And one of the biggest problems that I have is when you get to monoliths, you get to normal monoliths, right?
Hmm.
You just do the normal monolith grind, and then you get to empowered monoliths, and then you get like the empowered monolith grind. But they kind of just feel the same. And there's just nothing there to break the monotony of it. But the Weaver tree, at least from what we've seen so far, it seems like as though you're gonna have access to that the moment you like click on monos and stuff. So like that's gonna give people a lot more things to do on the way to empowered monos, which has always been like a big criticism of mine. Because one of the biggest issues right now is there's kind of like a really bad leveling disparity in last epoch where like to give you an example, if you're actually going fast, I usually get to like monos at like level 75 maybe, at empowered monos I mean, which is
Mhm.
like level 100 content. And then like essentially I'm like doing 3 level 90 monoliths at level 60 or whatever. Like
Yeah.
it's just kind of just absurd.
Oh yeah. Now the woven skill tree, for example, for the mono skill tree. I'm not sure what you call it. The Atlas Pass skill tree equivalent, right?
The Weaver
The
tree.
Weaver tree. Thank you. That's really gonna help not just bridge the gap, but the important part I feel like is the sense of progression, right? So like when you're doing something, even if the monotone approach is just running the map, similar to when you're going through white tier maps and yellow tier maps and red tier maps in PoE, you have a sense of progression that once you clear these things, you accumulate these currencies, you now get to spec points into the actual Weaver's tree, which will then enhance the experience of these monos. So there's an interface related progression system similar to what the just the quest of you the game telling you do this boss of this corruption to get to the next stage, if you will, and 300 you get to Aberoth, right? They're doing that indirectly with the Weaver's tree as well, allowing people to have a sense of progression. Because then the monolith runs don't feel hollow. And with hollow, I mean you open up a map and your only purpose in there is to get some favor and pray if you drop some items and get some experience, and then you move on. It goes beyond just a bare bone ARPG gameplay loop structure. Because now there's other things that gives you a sense of progression, the dopamine. Oh shit! Now I'm gonna go for that node in the Weaver's tree. Once I get that, it'll be even better. And so you always have these steps and goals to look forward to. So I think it's gonna change the entire take on and perspective people will have on the end game.
The way that I would put it is like I think the reason why last patch didn't do nearly as well as like the 1.0 and all that, because I don't know, like it was like 250,000 concurrent players on 1.0, then it was like 70,000 for 1.1. Part of the problem is the content that they added is content that most new players aren't going to reach for a long time in
Hmm.
terms of gameplay and all that. But like if you notice in Path of Exile, whenever they introduce a league mechanic, you see it immediately
Yeah.
on the beach, right? And I think that's like partly why, and I think this is like a good solution to that, is
Yeah.
getting access to it early on.
We all do also have to keep in mind that 11th hour, like last Epoch's progression right now with their releases is more so adding features that's supposed to be the core game features, more so than league mechanics is only there for 3 months, right? So
Oh, I
I'm
agree completely. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
hopefully once these things are ironed out, the idea will be to do something similar where they're the 3 month league cycle content that is only there for that specific cycle or season. They're calling it seasons now again. I keep mixing it up. So that season that they would have that be
I will
introduced in
never
the
call it a season. I will only call it a cycle now.
yeah, I feel you on that. So, sorry. So I mean, I definitely think that that's going to be something they do because that is, like you said, something that's very, very good from Path of Exile side of things, where you get into the game and you get to engage with this new thing so early on that you actually feel like you are not playing the same thing again, where you just slog through the campaign and then you get to engage with the new stuff. But the way the Last Epoch is currently progressing is obviously fixing the core fundamental pieces of the actual base game before they step forward and they get to the point where they can do these cycled content, if you will. So it's gonna be fun though. But now we with this patch, it's gonna be interesting to see the third season if they're going to tackle more of the campaign stuff because the campaign is not done yet. Know a lot of people complain about that, but I don't think that was the biggest issue. The biggest issue I think they're actually solving with the end game with the cycle, this next cycle, right? Do you agree with that take?
I think that like yeah, like I've talked about this at length, and in my opinion, last epoch, whenever they actually do something, when they do something, for the most part, other than very specific reworks, Serpent Shrek, uh, uh, whenever they actually get around to doing something, they do such an amazing job. And that's why it takes them so long, is because they put so much effort and quality into it for the most part. Like, you know, people will laugh at me because of like certain things like bugs and all that. But like in terms of like the actual content that they add to the game, like whenever I see like Nemesis, the Harbingers, it always looks really pretty, really good, just fits in the game, feels like as though they actually spent a quantifiable amount of time on it. It's just the problem is of late, it just hasn't been like that's like when they put stuff in, right?
Yeah.
That's been the problem in my opinion. I think like of course, you know, now that they have talked about this, that they're like going to be like fixing their schedule and stuff like that and actually posting at like 3 to 4 month intervals again, hopefully, right? Hopefully that happens. I'll be really grateful if that happens. But like because of that, people think that like they're not like making good stuff. Like no, they're making good stuff. Whenever they actually add something into the game, it's been amazing. Like amazing, absolutely amazing. It's just like the time that it requires, at least back then, was a little too long for like an ARPG, right? Like
Mm.
I've talked about this also at length as well, where like um in the beginning they were like they wanted to be a live service game from the jump. And to do that, unfortunately, to compete with that in this market, like you do have to like keep your players engaged for like, you know, in these seasons, because everyone's kind of just used to it at this point, right?
We're kind of spoiled, but yeah, I definitely
Spoiled, I
agree.
agree. Spoiled,
Yeah.
I agree with the spoiled part, dude. Because like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, I will like. I know I'm okay. So like, I know I have the mystique of being the negative Nancy constantly. But the problem is like, so for that, it's because people don't watch like. Usually, most people end up watching stuff around when patches are alive. You don't see me like playing build after build after build after build. But like the only reason I'm slightly negative in that regard is because I just want to see the game do well, because I love the game, man. Like the game is like at this point, like it's a part of my rotation in terms of my life and stuff. Like I want to
Mm.
see them do well. So when I see like, you know, like an update being pushed 8 months away, I'm just like a good example here is like whenever like I talk to people I know on the Path of Exile side and I talk about Last Epoch and all that, like people who have a lot of like a large following and stuff like that, like a few of my friends and all that, it's always never positive about Last Epoch, but it's not because of the content in the game. It's just because of like, you know, like, well, I haven't played Last Epoch in the last 6 months. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it always comes down to, everyone has different opinions on things like that. That's always going to be
yeah.
the take, and some parts are obviously hot takes, some more pressing than others. I mean, I know you and I have had disagreements on some things, and then we meet in the
Oh
middle on
yeah.
some other things. Like I mean, like we talk about the Minion question, we talk about the corruption stuff. I mean, we're on the same page there. But ultimately, in the end, it always comes down to, especially and most importantly for games like Last Epoch that is so young, it always comes from a place of passion, right? And I think that's quite important to point out that even negativity and whatnot. Like I played Path of Exile for 11 years, and there are moments where I've been shitting on Path of Exile a lot, to the point
Oh,
where
I'm
people,
sure.
yeah, I love you, to the point where people have said that I'm being too harsh, rude, and abrasive. I'm like, I just say it the way it is. I mean, and then you have the other side of the spectrum, the moment where I say something good, then now I'm a shill. You can never win in
Yeah,
this
I
industry.
unfortunately, I have been feeling that same kind of pushback as well, where like I'll bring up stuff that's positive, you're a shill. I'll bring up stuff that's negative, you're a negative Nancy. And it's like, where do you want me to be? Like,
Yeah.
you want me to just be a robot with no opinions?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, but in the end, it's always coming down to a place of passion. Like you and I, and many of us that play Last Epoch a lot, especially the ones that mainly stream Last Epoch. Like, I don't mainly stream Last Epoch, but I've been in the background since Kickstarter Alpha, right? And I play so much off stream in this game. Or like we're all in the same boat. We just want this game to succeed and get back on the map, right? So I
Yeah.
think that, like, my personal opinion with them delaying the launch like they did, I think that's something that was a smart decision in the end. And
Oh, I think it's a smart decision. Like, don't get
mm,
me wrong. Like, every time they've chosen to delay and all that, like I completely agree with it. But this is just like the court of public opinion doesn't care about your reasoning, right?
No.
Unfortunately, like you can like have 20 billion reasons of why you're not going to be upload, like why you have like a 2 month delay or whatever, but people are going to roast you over coals over it. It doesn't matter what you do in that regard.
Well, that's happening in Path of Exile
Unfortunately,
right now. They delayed everything, and everyone's just up in flames. PoE1 didn't get a league, and then they got this half-ass event after what,
it's so
7 months?
it's so weird because it's like okay, I have been playing PoE since like 3.0. That
Mm.
was like about when I started playing PoE. And like I'm used to not really giving GGG that much shit because like I've been playing so long now that like even in the darkest moments Kalandra even in the darkest moments of the game, like the game has never felt terrible. It's just been less good. And I think that's like, and that's what pains me whenever I see people being so disrespectful to like certain individuals, it's just like, guys, like, why don't you go play Call of Duty and go see like how they treat their community? Why don't you go do that? Like, just for a little bit and then come back.
Yeah. No, Lake of Calandra. Holy fuck, man. Shit show. Holy fuck. I've been trying to suppress my memories at 315 and 319, but holy fuck, Lake of Calandra.
I actually liked Expedition, but Lake of Calandra, it was interesting to me because I didn't have that bad of a time. But that's because I like rolled like a Herald of Agony Trickster, and I had a lot of fun in that league. But
I mean,
my problem with...
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that the 315 had less to do with the league and more to do with the whole Flask changes. They had a really cool vision of what they wanted to do. Instead of implementing all of the changes that would achieve that goal, they only implemented the removal of power, but they didn't give us the compensation until later. So that's why everyone just blew up about it. And then 319 was just, come on, man. Everyone was already upset
well,
4 leagues ago.
A good example here is like Last Epoch does that as well. Like recently they did a pass on Shaman and they made it like somewhat okay, but then they did another pass on Shaman just this patch, and now Shaman's like we used to meme on Shaman all the time. Like it was like the slapstick joke like class or whatever, right?
No.
Now Forge Guard is. But we were just so mean to it. But now, low key, I think it's better than like I would put it in the upper half right now because but it took 2 patches. But the reason why it felt so dissonant was because of the length between those patches, right? But like for PoE, they kind of do the same thing where they like do half of it now and half of it later, right?
Yeah. I mean, something that I like to talk about a lot when it comes to like Path of Exile's progression is always that they talk about the vision, right? So I always describe the vision as a fully painted Mona Lisa, right? And but they start off with just a blank canvas, and then they have to go Bob Ross on that ass and like just get some brush strokes in, right? But if they do a brush stroke that looks bad, then that's going to be bad until they add the the little branches on that tree. So it's a happy tree, not an ugly ass dead tree. So they have to take it step by step, and sometimes they're doing these things like the 315 class changes in PoE, where they removed some power from it. Everyone just freaked out about it, and then when they finally gave us the other half of that intended patch to get that tree finished, that paint on the painting, then it was fantastic. Now everyone's like, "Yo, the flasks are actually in a really good state." It's like a gear progression now. It's like everyone's happy with it, but they had to get to that point. So when they do these incremental steps towards the finished image, or a picture, they need to make sure that those incremental steps are also individually good or pleasing for the game's health and general quality. And sometimes that's not always hitting the mark, right? Then again, PoE has been out for 11, 12 years, right? So they've had a lot of time to make that mistake at least twice. Last Epoch's so fresh, right?
Definitely repeated mistakes for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's inevitable, right? Last Epoch is so young, so I was very happy when they decided to delay it the way they did to get those things right. And I think that after everything we've seen so far, I'm very happy with what we're looking at. And I really hope that this is enough for them to get to a point where, hey, we can now look at 4-month cycles, 3-month cycles, and not have more delays to last epochs. And I really hope that the numbers on the launch is going to represent that possibility.
Yeah, I think like one thing we disagreed on, I remember distinctly, was when they did the event, when they did the delay and all that. And the biggest problem I had with the delay specifically was, so one of the biggest draws of the event, the skeleton mobs, right? The skeleton champion mobs,
Right.
they
Yeah.
were like the coolest thing about the event. They didn't do anything with telling us what they were, like in terms of marketing. Like that's been like such a big pain point for this game in comparison to Path of Exile. Like was like they just didn't know how to market things properly. But now with the 1.2 trailer, like it was straight bussin'. It was great. Like
Oh
oh
yeah,
my
for sure.
god, that trailer was amazing.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you can see it by the numbers too. If you go look at the numbers of the 1.1 trailer and compare it to the 1.2 trailer, like the numbers are already like eclipsing each other. It's great. And
Yeah,
it's
for
like,
sure.
I hope that this is positive reinforcement for the future.
Absolutely. It's funny that you bring that up because I had completely forgotten about that, and I was reminded of it not long ago. So I was like, "What are you guys talking about? Like, what are you saying?" So I had to rewatch it. I watched the clip, and
Mm.
I went a little overboard with just out of character on my head, on my end of that. So
Oh,
I just
good.
want to
I
say sorry,
understand.
man, because that's not so.
Oh, you're
I
good.
remember
I'm not. Yeah,
that.
I don't take it personally at all. It's just, it's just when it happened. I'm just like, guys, like I think this event is a terrible idea. And by the way, mind you, the devs after the fact, in the Ask the Devs question, people were talking about it, and the devs were like, yeah, it didn't really make that much of a blip at all. Like this was probably a
Yeah.
mistake. So, but like I just like woke up one day and I was just getting a bunch of clips about it, and I was just like, what are you guys talking about? And I just see is because I think before what happened was there's just been kind of this history where I've known you, but I haven't known you. But I keep getting clips of you talking about me. Like for instance, there was one where I think the first time I saw you, like in terms of talking about me, was was when you first started playing Ellie, or it was like not like Ellie on stream, and you wanted to play a forged weapons build, and
Mhm.
you were getting slightly perturbed that I was the only person that was coming up with the search results, and you
Yeah,
were
you
also
were
getting
everywhere.
yeah.
There's so much
I know
content.
because no one else was making
I
anything. How is
know.
that my fault?
No,
And
it's
then and
crazy.
then yeah.
But
Well,
that's
and
why I
then
said to the guys that I was talking about
yeah.
what I wanted to do for the
Hmm.
interview is like, well, Dreadful's one of the guys that are making content on a consistent basis that is mainly streaming this game. So I wanted to make sure that you had the opportunity that if you wanted to come on and get a question in and we had this conversation, I wanted to bring you on for that reason as well because there's
Yeah.
not that many of you guys that are making content to that extent in terms of quantity. Aaron does a lot as
Yeah.
well, right? It's you and Aaron that I know of at
Mhm.
least that does this a lot.
And then like another thing was like during that clip, I remember specifically because I remember this. Uh, you were getting slightly perturbed at the fact that I wasn't using the forged weapon set, but you didn't have the context that the forged weapon set was ass. So like you're like, why aren't you using the forged weapon set? It's obviously meant for forged minions. I'm like, but my void cleave is so good, man. Why would you not use void cleave? It was just really funny. Like I came out of it like funny. I just remember that
I
specifically.
don't
It was
even
really
remember
funny.
that one. I
I
do remember the
know.
other clip because I was reminded of it. I was like,
Oh
"What the
yeah.
fuck did I do?" So I was like, "What did I say?" And I listened to
Yeah,
it. I
it
was like,
was
"Oh
so
wow."
funny because like I felt so bad too because I was like slightly trauma dumping on him, and I was just like I didn't mean to. I just remember this specific one thing. And like,
All
yeah,
right,
it was really funny.
all right. Well, I'm glad we had this conversation
Oh,
though.
I'm glad we had it too. It's nice to have some catharsis here.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Like, I remember that other clip. I was like, "Yo, this is out of character. Why did I say that? That's not me." And then I was like, "Okay, but this is like
So
ages
if
ago."
I remember, so I actually remember why you were slightly out of character because I have a little bit more context here. Because what happened was, so there was a guy I was like arguing with in my chat one day, and he was trying to say that like COF was better than MG, and like if you've ever actually played the game, you know that that's not true at all. Because they would compare someone who is playing 2 months for MG, I mean COF, and compare it to someone who played a week in MG, right? Which is
Yeah,
ridiculous. It's psychotic, right? So
especially the
I ended up
idols.
I like, and then he started being like really rude to my chat and all that. So I ended up like banning him, like obviously, right? Like as you would do, because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like, you know, culture, like I like cultivating a good chat environment. And then I remember like I think he was like egging you on. I think in that clip specifically, and I think that's like why
It's
I think it was just
possible.
like, yeah, I remember it succinctly because I was like, wait, isn't that the guy I banned the other day because he was being an asshole to my chat? I'm like, oh my god, it is. I'm like, wow, this guy's like talking mad smack over here. What the heck? It
So,
was really funny.
no, it's yeah, like I didn't even remember it at all. So like, when I
Oh
first heard
yeah.
about it, I was like, that doesn't sound like me. Sure, that didn't
Well, I
happen. So I had
also
to like
well
dig
part
through
of
my
it,
clips and found. I was
yeah,
like, yo, what is this?
part of it too was I remember too. I just didn't know you as well. Now that I know you a lot more because I've digged in a little bit more, I'm just like, yeah, that is something he would do. That's kind of funny.
But yeah, I mean, speaking of MG and COF, we can wrap that up from there. Now, I'm a humongous COF fan because of the longevity and the replayability access to it. And I think that with the whole crafting of idols is going to make that a lot more fun because that was my biggest gripe when you compare the
Yeah.
two. Where idols was like, yeah, I want 2 life mods on an idol. Good luck finding enough of those in COF without spending 2 months farming for it. And in
Oh
MG,
yeah.
it's like you just buy the gear, right? And that's obviously why it's so much stronger in terms of getting your power scaling up faster. But with that said, what is your personal take on the two? Which one do you prefer to play, and what's your opinion on them?
So I play MG for two succinct reasons. One, the first reason, it's a little bit more of a selfish content creator perspective. If I'm going to make the amount of builds that I do and also keep up with the people who are like metagaming, I need to play MG because I need like I gear like 20 characters plus a cycle. While these people they only play one character a cycle. So keeping up with that is like insane, mind you. Like it is an insane amount of favor grind. That's the first reason is for content because I also like making like not just one build. I like making a bunch of builds because I like showcasing a lot of the stuff the game has to offer because like I think that's my favorite thing about the game is like what it has to offer in terms of the skill diversity and all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fucking Orion's Eye, are you fucking kidding me? I just want my belt, man. Okay. Continuing on here, before I go crazy. The second problem, stash management. Stash management. 100%. It is such a huge problem for COF. If you look at anyone who plays COF for more than a week, stash management is pure and utter hell. It is hell on earth. Because if you want to, like, because the problem is, okay, let's say that you want to play more than one build in COF. Well, now you have 2 stash tabs that are dedicated to like each character. Oh, what if you want to play a third one? Now you have 3 stash tabs or more dedicated to just potential items you can craft on or put on LP or whatever, right?
I'm showing the
Like
chat my stash right now.
just
You're
don't pick
not
up
wrong.
garbage, to be honest. That's the thing though, Fuzzy. If you don't do that, you're gonna be like, okay, I want to play this in this build. Wait a moment, I don't have those items anymore because I made room for these items instead. Like you end up hoarding so many items if you're trying to play properly, mind you, right? You're trying to play properly because in COF it's a struggle bus. You need every single item that you can possibly get that even has remotely sets. And this is going to be even worse next patch with Runes of Redemption and Runes of like Havoc, by the way. Like it's going to be worse by like a magnitude or two because you're gonna be like, oh, you know, that T7 stun chance, man, like it's not very good, but it is on a good base, and I can use a Rune of Redemption. But I also don't want to use it right now because I could use it for a build in the future. I don't want to use it right now, and you just end up with pure stash bloat. Like pure stash bloat. If you only play one build, COF is fine, but it's like the moment you start trying to play more than one build, it goes to the shit.
It
So
does,
stash
and then now it's
management,
even worse with the whole shuffling of the tiers, right? So yeah, you got tier
yeah,
7 stun block recovery, whatever, block
but
chance.
it's on a good base.
Yeah, it's on a
I
good
want to
base,
keep
and now
it.
you can shift it. And I was like, oh, because now I can
Yeah.
craft the mod. I want tier 7, then shift it if the 14 potential is enough, of course. So now it's going to be even more for sure. But then again, I guess there's 2 things with the stash in general. I mean, one thing is obviously that there's a lot of loot hordes out there, and I think that's fun personally. I don't mind it too much, but yes, it is a problem. But they also had the biggest issue, which I think is one of my two main concerns with Last Epoch for the new cycles coming out, is obviously that the replayability is going to be enough for people to be interested in playing it, and I think they're covering that. The other part is performance, right? Because they had this change some time ago where opening up a stash tab and it's like, yeah, let's just wait 3 hours for it to
still
show.
exists. It still exists.
So
Still
it's like they need to fix that, because like I think that the performance related issues, if they don't get that stuff on track before the launch, I think that there's a risk that those problems is going to put the good things in the shadows, and I really hope they're going to fix that.
Yeah, it's like people are like, well, yeah, well, you get these for free. You have to buy them in Path of Exile. I'm like, yeah, well, when I log into Path of Exile, I have 20 dump tabs ready to fucking go. Give me some dump tabs, man. Yeah. Please.
But yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, like you said, I mean, the good thing, the free, you just buy them with gold. It is really nice, and it is very good for trade players, merchant guild, COF. You just want to hoard all of the exalted items like so much. It's like Jesus Christ. There's a certain point in the game where you don't loot exalted items unless they have 2 exalted ones.
Even if like they don't increase the amount you can have, I would just like to be able to just combine 4 into a tab. Like, I don't want to sift through 200 tabs. Who wants to sift through 200 fucking tabs? Like who actually wants to do that? Who wakes up and is like, oh yeah, let me just sift through like 200 tabs to see if I can find an upgrade for my build today? Like, who wants to do that? Come on.
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But again, like, just to finalize that question, basically you're an MG fan, you will be advocating for a merchant guild in general.
Well, in Merchant's Guild, I have like, in Merchant's Guild, my stash is infinite. I chuck it on the bazaar. Guess what? I can go find it later. You can find your own items you put on the bazaar yourself. Like, you can find your own items, by the way. Yeah. So, like, every so often, I'll just find an item I put up there. I'm like, oh, look, a free item. Heck yeah. Thanks for the storage, game. And then you just compare it to COF, and it's just
Fair enough, fair enough.
Like, I would play COF if like the stash stuff was fixed. I think like I would ask in that regard is like, hey, like, stash management is just horrid for MG. Like, I wouldn't even like sugarcoat it. It's just horrid, man. It's just horrid.
Yeah.
Like, are you guys gonna do anything in terms of stash management?
I don't have any arguments against that at all. I think that you're absolutely on point with that. I think that one of the big things with COF is that I don't get to endgame, and now my entire build is kind of done. In terms of, like, I have all the stuff I need. COF gives me that progression feeling, which is what I really like about it.
Yeah, I agree completely.
But you also have the problem they had with duping, right? The duping situation, they didn't deal with it fast enough, and that completely ruined merchant guild players, where COF was basically completely untouched for the most part. Obviously, you had the gold dupe for the gold sink dungeon. But outside of that, COF was more or less untouched from these issues, which is kind of safeguarding for that. But I really hope that they're going to be faster and more having a better resolve on the solution, solving situations like the dupe situation, even if that means they have to roll back, like, do whatever it can, because of how important trade integrity and economy integrity is for a game like this.
Okay, so my opinion on that, the way I view it, okay, is I would say the perfect cycle of playing Last Epoch, if you are the kind of person that plays more than a week, okay, you play MG for the first maybe month or so until you get bored, and then you come back and then play COF, and then you end up getting the best of both worlds, and you end up getting both games instead of just one, right? That's like what I would say, like, is the way I would personally play if I wasn't making content. Like, I would like play MG, then play COF, because it's just more entertaining that way.
For me personally, I feel like it kind of depends on scheduling. Like, we have the 0.2 patch in PoE2 around the corner as well.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about like if you only play Last Epoch. Right?
Oh, for sure. So I think that I might end up like I play quite a lot of builds off stream, but when it comes to my on stream presence, I'm playing maybe 1 or 2 builds, and I think that if we know that the next patch for the other game that I'll be playing is quite some time out, I'll probably just do it in COF just to make sure that I have a lot of fun during that progression. But if I'm the kind of player similar to what you're talking about, like making multiple new builds, then Merchant Guild is without a doubt the optimal choice, because that makes that a feasible play style. Because you can't do that without spending years playing in COF, right?
Yeah. It's kind of funny because like people like, for instance, when the Freesia event came on, a lot of people were asking me is like, hey Dread, like, are you gonna play like the Freesia event? I'm like, dude, I got to like T16s and then like I stopped because like I have so much work to do. Like I play other games. I know it doesn't seem like it, but I do. I just don't make videos on it. That's all.
Oh,
So like, I just don't have the time to.
I feel you. To wrap this up, let's how about you sell yourself on the channel? I'll probably post this on YouTube anyway, so like where can we find you? What's your next process? What are you gonna do in the cycle launch? Go ahead, sell yourself.
Perfect. Hello, this is Dread. So I currently make a large majority of the current Last Epoch content. And I have the numbers to back that up, by the way. If you go to like the Last Epoch Planner like website, I'm like the #1 author there technically. So you know, ha ha ha. But I just make stuff for fun. I'm not too serious when it comes to playing the game, mainly because if I was, I would go crazy because like I play so many builds. But essentially here, I'm actually going to be working on a 10 out of 10 Harbinger guide for people who haven't been paying attention to the game for the past like few months or whatever, because there's been a lot of changes in that regard. Because of that fact, I've done like I think like I'm at my 16th 10 out of 10 Harbinger run, so I've been going out of my way to make sure that I know what I'm talking about. So like look forward to that on YouTube. That'll be coming out very soon. Next, like when the patch notes and stuff are out, I'll make that video. So
And what's your YouTube handle?
It'll be just Dreadful. DR3ADFUL. It's just like elite speak.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's pretty much it for that.
All right.
I also stream occasionally.
Yes, and that's same spelling Dreadful and 2 underscores right after.
Yes,
you shout out earlier.
2 underscores. Mm-hmm.
Good shit. All right, well, Dreadful, thanks so much for your time, and I'll find a way to reword your question, and I'll try to make sure that I want to make sure that I get all of you guys questions in on the interview one way or another. If it doesn't happen, I'll just apologize, but I will try my best to make sure it happens.
Just get the Minion one for me, because I'm genuinely curious about like what their opinion on this specific thing. Because I've asked a few times, but I've never gotten like a serious answer. So like I'm just curious what their opinion is in terms of like you can also like as a second part of the question, if you have time, like what do you guys think of the current state of favor farming? Like do you think do you think favor is too strong right now, or like in terms of like it's kind of like making it so that only specific builds are like the best builds because of favor? Like that's always going to happen, but that's like something interesting. I'm just curious about what their thoughts are on that. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, my intentions with this interview is to go more mechanically deep, talk about class balance and balance in general. So I think that questions like the one you want to ask is going to be very much something that I personally care about as well. So like, rest assured, there will be some Minion questions in there no matter what. So
perfect.
I'll make sure.
I would like to play a Minion build again. I would like to.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like I've been so busy with like the Sentinel stuff and some Warlock stuff. So I think that tonight after the stream I'll be going on the CT to actually engage more with Minions. But basically this changes. It's going to be. I'm expecting to have the same feeling or experience with it being kind of slow. But we'll see how it goes and what I can cook from there. But again, Dreadful, thanks so much for joining in, and I'll catch you later. And good luck on the launch, dude.
Yep. Thank you so much, GHAZZY. I'll talk to you later. Thank you.
Talk later. Bye bye.